The impression the game you get out with what you put into. It's like a walk of life. If you're good enough, go out and get it, no more about it.
But not so much control in the centre of the field from Kilkenny as Richie Bennett sends it high and over the bar.
Your mother sends you down to the shop for a pound's worth of goods and she gives you 50 pence. You can't get the pound's worth of goods, can you?
Just about kept in. Oh, well done, Shawnee Buckley. To do that to Tomas O'Shea, he deserves to score from here. One of the highlights of the Sunday game.
Limerick went out there from the word go today. No more about it. They made all the running, that was it. Put the ball over the bar and the back of it, and that's it. No ifs, no buts.
Is there much time left? We have a couple of injuries. Here comes Kieran Carey. Carey leading the charge of the right brigade. 45 metres out. He's a chance to score. He's put it high. He's put it over.
There's no sympathy in this game for anybody.
Hello, and you're very welcome to another episode of Treaty Talk. Tom Clancy and John Keogh. We're both now equipped with beautifully sounding, I hope, microphones, and hopefully the sound quality has improved now in the last couple of weeks. John had his last week, but he nevertheless picked mine up during the week. So we'll hopefully be bringing you some dulcet tones and indeed some plenty of talking points across the Gaelic Games action of the week. John, how's life with you this week?
All's good, Tom. All's good.
Yeah, another interesting afternoon for the Limerick hurlers. We'll get to that in detail. Obviously, the highlight, or not the highlight of it, the biggest talking point, obviously, the injury to Peter Casey, which we'll come to again in a minute. But Limerick 2 from 2, so you know, a mixed day. It was a strange feeling, wasn't it, at the Gaelic grounds? Yeah,
it was, Tom. Look, for I don't know, it was a 50-odd minutes. I think Limerick, after the first 25, it was 6-all, and then it was 12-6, then 6 scores in a row. And, you know, you kind of felt when Tipperary missed that goal chance from Sean Hayes, the kind of air came out. And I thought Tipp had played fairly well up to that point. They'd found some very, very promising pockets of space. They'd worked the ball very well out of the fence. They'd worked it in the pockets of space in the forward line. But when that goal chance came from Sean Hayes, and another incredible save by Nicky Quaid, you know, they kind of wind without the Tipperary sails from there. Whether it was whether they ever believed they were going to beat Limerick in that game, I'm not so sure. But they had certainly they played with confidence up to that point, you know. But Limerick rattling off 6 scores in a row from that moment on, you know. And there was really probably only one winner, and then, you know, you get the goal when Aaron Gillan buried that goal. You get the second goal, you know, and there was a jovial atmosphere, you know, after Aaron Gillan's goal. It was right, Limerick, who had struggled for so long in the previous game for so many different reasons. Struggled maybe is making it harsh, but we're in a fair bit of trouble up to that devastating 11 or 12 minutes, and then you see total dominance from the 25th minute on against Tipperary team. You know, so the 32,000 plus that were in the Gaelic grounds, you know, we're certainly enjoying themselves. The majority of them, of course, Limerick fans. The other small number, it must be said, that Tipperary fans that did travel weren't exactly enjoying it. But yeah, look, great result for Limerick, 2 from 2, but completely overshadowed by that injury to Peter Casey. And, you know, the whole life went out of the game after that moment, you know, and it took, and I know we'll probably touch on Adam English later on in the podcast, but it took his, you know, little bit of magic off the bench, the 4 points, and in such quick time, you know, to kind of reinvigorate the ground a bit after what had happened to Peter. But, you know, yeah, like tons of positives for me throughout the performance. I know we'll get into further detail in that, but yeah, look, mixed feelings after the game, obviously, after that moment, but 2 from 2, and I'm sure John Kiley, Paul Kinnerk, and the rest of the Limerick management team, as well as the players, will be absolutely delighted. You know, you only have to look back to last year. Struggled to win over Waterford in round 1, lost to Clare in round 2, and Limerick with a 2-week break, or a couple of days break, as John Kiley told us after the game, before they got back at earlier this week, heading into the Cork game. They're in a fantastic position.
Yeah, they definitely are. If they lose the last 2, there's still a possibility they'll get through. If they pick up a draw in the last 2, they mathematically, I would think, are more or less there. And obviously, if they win against either Cork or Waterford in the last 2, then they should be looking very good to qualify. And indeed, if they win one of those, very good position to be in a Munster final. So very, very positive from that point of view. Obviously, we'll touch on Peter Casey's performance and indeed injury in a second. But John, we're Limerick people, and you and I think, as biased as we probably are sometimes in terms of our own county, we're smart enough to know, and we're maybe, we're wise enough to realise that Limerick beaten by Tipperary by 15 points should not feel normal, and it probably felt a little bit strange how Limerick beat Tipperary by 15 points, and there wasn't too much, uproaring and shouting about that. That is what this team have done. They've probably rewritten history. And maybe expectations, 15 points win. Obviously, the Peter Casey thing overshadows it, but there was times where Limerick was struggling to win any championship game. Now, they beat Clare away, which hadn't been done since 1990, and then they just beat Tipperary by 15 points. It's bizarre, isn't it, where we've come to?
Yeah, there's so many facets to this one, Tom. Number one, you're right, 100% right. What a start to a Munster championship. You beat Clare away for the first time in 34 years. Albeit as we mentioned the last couple of weeks, there's caveats in there that the amount of times they've played in Ennis in Munster championship in that time. But to beat Tipperary by 15 points is no mean feat. We saw how close the teams were a year ago in that very tense draw in Thurles. To me, it shows a mark of this group that a 15-point victory over Tipperary isn't seen as that biggest surprise for some bizarre reason. They were just so far superior, and so much of the commentary since last Sunday has been, my God, how bad are Tip? And I haven't seen a huge amount of, my God, how good are Limerick yet this year. And a lot of the comment after the Clare game was, geez, how bad were Clare in the last 20 minutes. Now, I'm not saying for 1 second that's incorrect either. I'm saying
both can be correct, yeah.
Both can be correct, exactly. So I think Limerick's devastating last quarter against Clare. I think they spotted a weakness in Clare that Cork probably did as well. And if it wasn't for a couple of saves from Eibhear Quilligan in the first half, much maligned Eibhear Quilligan after the performance against Limerick, on a bit harshly in some aspects and fair in some others, but that could have went a very different way for Clare, and Cork opened them up so often. So maybe they saw the same thing Limerick did, but look, that's for a different discussion. But from my point of view, bias or no bias, you can only celebrate a team that scores 227 in albeit fantastic conditions for most of that game. I know it rained heavily during the first game in the Camogie game between Limerick and Waterford in the Munster Championship there, but I thought the conditions, albeit there was a very strong wind in the first half, and John Kiley again saying after the game that they were a bit worried maybe that for large parts of the first half they weren't putting a score on the board that they probably felt they needed, but they played so well into the breeze in the second half. Limerick did so well, so many good things, that you'd just be delighted to see. And yeah, there's an element of 15 point win over Tipperary by this team is no one surprised. There has to be plenty of surprise in the time. You're not expecting to beat any team at this level by that margin. I had a quick look at the tables earlier today, and I think it's Limerick plus 18 after 2 games, and the next team Waterford plus 3 after their 1 game. So, Clare, I think are minus
1, yeah. Cork probably minus 5 or something like that, yeah.
That's it. So, you're looking at, and then Tipperary obviously with the minus 15, but you can only just marvel at times at this, but like I saw suggested as well, and I think this is a fair. Limerick didn't have to get out of second, third gear in that game. They were able to do what they can do. Aaron Gillan just a tour de force and full forward again. We'll talk in more detail about Peter Casey, I know, but I just thought he was outstanding. Long before the injury, I just thought he had such a good influence on the game. Declan Hannon was outstanding. Sean Finn, there was a moment in the second half where a ball went into the Tipperary full forward line. Sean Finn just held off his man, using his strength, controlled the ball, 2-touch into his hand and back to Nicky Quaid. It was the most simplest bit of defending you'll see of something that's so difficult, and just the simplicity that Limerick play at times. And one player I'm going to mention as well, I thought he was the outstanding player in the field. Certainly for the first half, when Limerick looked in a bit of trouble, but were under a bit of pressure, was Kyle Hayes. He gave an exhibition in the first half for me and was cool as a breeze in the second half as well. So plenty of good indicators. Will O'Donoghue having 70 minutes behind him, and as well being able to afford to take off both Cian Lynch and Gerard Hegarty, who played 70 plus minutes the week before,
and Kyle Hayes
giving them that bit of break as well. Kyle Hayes as well, to be able to do that, to players that had put in such a huge shift the week before. And it wasn't anything to do with the way Carol and Keane were playing. I can certainly say that, and obviously with Kyle as well. So an ideal thing outside of Peter Casey's injury. But yeah, you can only give credit where it's due. Yeah, Tipperary far from what Liam Cahill would have wanted, but on this podcast we're focusing on one thing, and you can only focus on the positive that Limerick provided against Tipp last Sunday.
Yeah, just to talk about Peter Casey as in terms of his action, right? The goal now, it was actually quite a good finish. But even before that, in the first half, I think Aaron Gallan's point from play, he didn't, probably won't be credited with the turnover as it were, but he seized on a poor touch, forced the Tipperary player to spill. I think William O'Donoghue actually will officially get the turnover. Limerick get a score from it. That's what he's all about. He's an absolute pest. I'd hate to be a cornerback at the best of times, but I'd definitely hate to be one coming out against him, because he doesn't give you a second to breathe. Obviously in the second half then he, I think the Sunday game even highlighted, he linked well, set up a couple of scores, but it's not flashy stuff. It's, gets the ball, gives a 5-yard stick pass, 6-yard hand pass, whatever it'll be, someone into space, evades the cover really well. Obviously the goal then is takes it down to a very tight angle, but just rifles it past Hogan in the Tipperary goals. Like, he was coming to a bit of form, or he brought a bit of form. Like, obviously he was suspended the first afternoon against Clare, hadn't really pulled up many trees in the league, it was in and out like a lot of the players, but he comes in, shows what he's all about, and I suppose we were getting very excited, I suppose, to say, right, we've Aaron Gallan, obviously the hurler of the year, and now we've Peter Casey, who has found his I suppose his summer hurling, as it were, in the last few days of April. But just heartbreaking really to see his leg injured so badly. And look, people are speculating, will we see him again in the Limerick jersey? Given his determination to come back from that cruciate injury, I'd hold out plenty of hope that we will. Obviously, we're no experts and we don't know the full extent of it, but you'd really hope that isn't it for him. I think he's 27. We'd love to see him come back and have another crack at it. He probably deserves that, given, as we say, I suppose the efforts he's gone to come back into it. And I suppose my overall point was, he was on fire really on the afternoon. He got man of the match, and I don't think that was a token gesture by the Sunday game or the RT panel. I genuinely don't think he was actually outstanding. It was probably, it was certainly merited. 1-2, set up another couple of scores, really worked hard for the team. That's what Limerick are going to be missing, and it is a blow to the Limerick's chances this year to lose him.
Absolutely, it's a blow, Tom. First of all, on that, yeah, he's, the final quarter display against Kilkenny in last final 25 minutes, I suppose is a better way of putting it. Display that he put in on his own, whatever about the rest of the Limerick team that were guns blazing in last year's All-Ireland, second half of last year's All-Ireland final. But Peter Casey, just the display he gave then. You mentioned right about the league. I don't think any Limerick player really hit full form in that, and I'm sure John Kyle and Paul Kinnerk wouldn't have wanted them to either. But yeah, he was just all over the place. He was like a wasp. He was around. He was always there. He was always picking up ball. I remember one piece of play in front of us, he turned a Tipperary player inside out 3 times, I think, in the second half, just dazzling before the shot wasn't on, so he laid it off again. Just brilliant display. And yeah, I think you're right, 55 minutes when that injury happened, he was the best player in the field up to that point for me, along with Kyle Hayes. As I already mentioned, Peter Casey's an outstanding hurler. He's been that way for the last 12 years when he was coming through as a 15, 16-year-old in the Pearshig and Limerick Underage teams. He was an outstanding talent then. That hasn't changed. What he has added to his game, and I think everyone has under John Kiley and Paul Kinnerk, is that extra bit of work rate. If it's a full forward line of Gillan, Flanagan and Casey, it's Casey's the one that steps out. The interesting thing for me on Sunday was he was the one staying in with David Reedy coming out more often, albeit switching around. But you could find Peter Casey anywhere in the field. It'd be no surprise to see him winning possession back in his own half-back line either, because that's just a mark of this Limerick team, but also more importantly a mark of Peter Casey's ability and his aptitude and everything he brings to the team. And then of course he like, all that hard work is great, Tom, but as we've both mentioned, the skill and level of ability, you're so surprised, more so than any player, if Peter Casey gets a shot away and it isn't on target. You kind of have to take a second look at what the umpires are kind of signaling, because you don't really fully believe it, because he's usually so accurate. So for him to be taken away, which is what we expect to be a season-ending injury, number one. I'm not, myself and yourself aren't going to speculate to long-term things because it's not in our business. It's not, we don't know, as you said, the full extent of any injury. You see all the speculation, see all the stuff online. I'd pay no heed to that. Most important thing is that Peter Casey gets healthy. I'm not sure when the surgery, I think at some stage this week it was due to take place. On, as Limerick statement read, a broken ankle. After that, you know, it was a very sad talk to a couple of Limerick players after the game as we went into the tunnel for John Kiley. You know, it was just somber, and talking to members of the backroom team. Peter was already gone to the hospital at that stage, and you know, it was just you think, Tom, after winning the game by 15 points, you'd be jovial, you'd be jubilant, but there was none of that down around the Limerick dressing room on Sunday. You know, and first off, it's the thing that matters most. Yes, we all love our hurling, we all love to see our sport, but players' welfare and safety is what matters most. And Peter Casey's recovery and the road he's on now is what matters most for him and his family and his close friends and everyone belonging to him, that he recovers safely. Hurling is secondary to all that. Yes, of course, we want to see Peter Casey back in a Limerick shirt and, of course, in an Piercy shirt as soon as we possibly can. Whether that happens or not, it's not up to us. It's not up to anything else that people are speculating. Is the most important thing is his health and well-being. And of course, every one of us here involved in this podcast and everyone involved with us that were anyway involved in any of this, wish him the best and a speedy recovery.
Yeah, and just on the incident itself, just to reiterate the efforts of, I think it took maybe 3.5-4 minutes to get him off the pitch. That's a testament to Dr. James Ryan, the Limerick team doctor, Mark Melbourne, the physio, and actually the Tipperary physio and doctor, I don't know their names now offhand, and even the likes of the Tipperary goalkeeper, and names are escaping me here now, and I think one of the Tipperary defenders, the fullback.
Yeah, it was Barry Hogan and Ronan Maher. Now,
they went straight to his assistance, like, you know.
I want to highlight this with Ronan Maher. You've seen it, and I've seen a lot of rubbish written online, and pretty much online. It wasn't anywhere else.
Rubbish,
rubbish has been very, very kind. Look, not for 1 second. We've both played the game, Tom, whatever levels we played at. You know, I just, it's coming. Like, I just don't fathom people saying that this was a deliberate attempt from Ronan Maher to, for want of a better phrase, do Peter Casey. I've never seen so much bull in my life since Sunday. Ronan Maher has been a top-class level player all his Tipperary career and all for his club career, from a fantastic family of GA people in Tipperary and a Tipperary captain to boot. Like, Ronan Maher has been an outstanding stalwart for Tipperary for a long, long time. Yeah, there's things happen in matches, Tom. We've all been guilty of it as well. But no way in hell should anyone think, or for 1 second, that was a deliberate act for Ronan Maher to do Peter Casey. And I just want to highlight that, because I've seen it written, you've seen it written, and it's absolute codswallop, for want of an old phrase. And it should be highlighted, you know, that this kind of crap, you know, that does come up online, needs to be just ignored, is putting it mildly. I've seen it suggested today by Limerick people that, you know, that this was a deliberate act and this kind of crap. Now, this is Thursday after this game took place, you know, and you're still seeing, you know, that, you know, if you're emotive after a game, you say that kind of crap, fine. You know, you get over it and you realize, geez, maybe I was off the mark. But to still see that perpetuated nearly a week later is very sad from my point of view. And it's Limerick people, in this case anyway, from what I was reading, that were perpetuating it.
Yeah, no, I agree with those statements wholeheartedly. There's no anyone that plays any sport, and look, I haven't played much hurling myself. I know you've played a fair bit more than me, John, but from playing any other code, look, people will go out to, you know, maybe a late shoulder on someone or a late tackle if, you know, as you know, I play a fair bit of soccer, but no one says, geez, I'll try and go and break this fella's leg. You know, that just doesn't happen, you know. And then anyone that does do that isn't involved in the game at the level that these lads are at. You know, they're probably someone who's letting their frustrations of other parts of their life out on a sporting field, and you just wouldn't see that at an inter-county level for sure. And in fairness to the Tipperary, to Hogan and Maher, they were as quick as you like. I was in the press box, John, a couple of seats down from you. They were as quick as anyone to signal that this guy, Peter Casey, obviously was in serious distress. Get over here and help him ASAP. You know, they were quick to his assistance. They were in comfort him and all the rest of it. So, like, you know, any suggestion that there was intent is lunacy, in my opinion. So look, speedy recovery to Peter Casey. Hopefully we'll see his brother Mike, who's only on a bit of a hamstring issue. Hopefully he'll be back in action in the not too distant future, and hopefully Peter in good time will be back to full health and be able to take to the field when he's ready to do so. John, if we can just flip back to the game itself, Aaron Gilligan's goal. I think there was a time a few years ago where he was going high with a lot of shots and keepers were saving him. But if you're going high with a shot that is hit at whatever speed that was hit at 100 miles an hour or whatever it was, there ain't too many keepers around saving that. That was some effort, wasn't it?
Yeah, the old Sky soccer pundit Andy Gray, you don't save those. Incredible, Tom. And the funny thing was, he peeled away from his marker, but it's a standing start. It's hard to generate for mere mortals. It's hard to generate that kind of power with a shot. But I've watched it. God knows how many times I've watched it back. I'm still struggling to figure out, how he did it. And maybe that's why I played at the level of hurling I played at, and that's why he's playing the level of hurling he's playing at. It was just an incredible finish, Tom. Barry Hogan's an outstanding shot stopper. Just as they all are at intercounty level, and just he didn't even see it, Tom. And from that standing start, effectively, because he did stop, to wind up, but there was no backlift, for want of a better phrase. There was no, big windy swing. It was just so clinical, so well struck, and just again, like Peter Casey, we were saying, a player at the top of his game. Aaron Gillan, the last 3-4 years, has just gone on to different levels of ability, of standard. You see it in battles.
It's confidence, really, isn't it? I'm not saying he didn't have confidence, but now there's I take every time he gets the ball, I'd say he's just like, well, I'm going to score. Whether it's a goal or a point.
Exactly.
There's just that complete and utter selflessness belief that, he probably said, geez, back to goal here, sure, I might as well have a cut. Whereas maybe a few years ago, maybe he was a bit younger, just tapped it over the bar. And look, no one would have cribbed if he did. It would have been a fine point to take from there. But just that kind of that rootlessness is there now, and I'm not going to miss this. I'm going to just find the net from there,
I think, Tom, what it is for me, looking at it, it's pure, unadulterated belief that he didn't even question it, Tom. He wouldn't have even thought of it. It was natural. It was that natural thing. Why wouldn't I go for a goal from here? Rather than thinking, should I go for a goal from here? And that step, that little inch or two in the brain that makes that, decision from worrying about what the consequences are or not, or being utterly, fully in belief of what you're doing in your processes and everything of that. And that's come from countless hours, and I mean hours upon hours on the training field. As you know Aaron better than me, and the dedication he has. It's phenomenal. So, and look, all intercounty players do. When you see a guy at that level and the work that's gone into Aaron, that he's put in since he got onto the Limerick senior panel to get to where he is today, is one of, if not the top forward in the country, has been just untold. You give him a sniff of anything, it invariably either ends up in the back of the net or it ends up over the bar. He's a forward of his generation, Tom, like so many of these Limerick players are. He great battle with Conor Cleary last week. To me, I'm still saying he scored 2-5 in that Clare game.
Not having it.
But I'm not having that. It went all the way in from Diarmaid Burns. I certainly think there was a deflection, and then to 1-8 or 1-9 he scored, against Tipperary last time out. And I know, a good proportion of those are frees, but if you're scoring 1-1, 1-2 from full forward every week from play, you're on a winner, Tom, every day of the week. Because if you can guarantee, and that's the interesting thing with Limerick, five goals in the last 2 games. We'd been asking, and certainly in some quarters, we'd been asking John Kiley after games and stuff, look, what's the story with the goals? Why are Limerick just not creating enough chances and this and that? And at the other end, they've started to keep goals out. No goal, 1 goal against Clare, no goals against Tipperary. And all of a sudden, it's shutout mode again. Everything seems to be back on track. But finishing on Aaron, what a player to have as part of your arsenal. He can do absolutely everything, Tom, and long may it continue from Limerick's point of view.
Yeah, just on the goals thing, I just off the top of my head, I think Limerick have scored a goal in every game bar the Galway games this year. So maybe not a conscious effort, but such is the skill. They're going to be creating them, and certainly they're taking some of them anyway. And 2 more on Sunday and a clean sheet at the back. So goals doing the business so far. If we can move on to the Gen Z lads, and I'll lead with with Adam English, Gen Z. I think someone from 98 or something onwards. Obviously, he's even younger than that, so he's in the early 2000s. Adam English, he comes on the game as we know.
Millennial, Tom. He's a millennial.
Yeah, I think I'm in the millennials. He's in the Gen Zs, but
I'm even further back.
We'll give you a full lesson on that next week. We'll have our homework properly done. He comes on, the game has really lost its way. It's very loose, but nevertheless, I think he had 4 possessions or so thereabouts. He had 4 points anyway, that's for sure. Maybe he will end up in this category of being a sub, but he's certainly made the impact of it. He might, Conor Boylan's in that with previously Shane Dowling, Pat Ryan. I think we mentioned even those names last week. Look, I'm sure he won't come crib with that, but certainly he's shown that he's ready for this level. Even last year in the Munster, came on as the blood sub in the Munster against Cork, Munster round robin game. Munster final, sorry, and I think he came on then as a sub for a couple of minutes after that. But and he came on in the All-Ireland semi-final, so he's obviously been used as a sub. He's certainly trusted, and a lot of those games are a lot tighter than this. So Adam English certainly, showing that the people are complaining that the underage teams aren't winning, but the underage teams are continuing to churn out players, and there's talents all over the county, and Adam is certainly one of those.
Yeah, he's a huge talent, one of the top talents in the country. We would have seen a lot of him at Fitzgibbon Cup level this year, more so than last year. He was injured for a lot of Limerick's league campaign last year and the early parts of the Fitzgibbon Cup too. Came back towards the end of UL's campaign and had a fair impact in them winning the Fitzgibbon Cup in 2023. Where do I start with Adam English? Look, I remember seeing him for the first time, I think, as a minor. May have seen him just before that. I'll give you one quick example of Adam English as a minor player. I think he was minor captain the year Limerick won the Munster Minor Championship in 2020 to beat Tipperary in an epic final after extra time. I remember being one of the very privileged few to be at that game in the 2 Gaelic grounds.
You and about 20 other people, I'd say.
I think that was it. Yeah, it was a case of, I was doing commentary, I think, with Kieran Carey and Ken Hogan.
Yeah.
On the stream that day, and geez, I just remember it was an epic. Adam English, for want of a better phrase, was dragging Limerick through that game. A very talented Tipperary team, a very talented Limerick team, but English was just phenomenal tour de force that day. But there's one came to mind. He scored an outrageous point running down the right wing, the Mackey stand side into the city, and just from the touchline, unbelievable score. And from the next puck out, it was Adam English that caught the ball. He's a guy who has everything. Look, we're the Irish personality, Tom, in general. We're always, talking down this, leave him be, he's only young lad. Look, sometimes you have to look what's in front of you straight in the face and accept it for it. Adam English is one of the most talented young hurlers that we've seen in Limerick, and that's a huge comment to make out of me. I'm very aware of that. Than what we've seen come through in the last 10 years. Adam English is as good as anything, and he's just has it all. He has the physicality. It's off either side. He can score frees. He can score from anywhere. He can win his own ball. He can lay the ball off. He's not as selfish as maybe, I think that he maybe was as a young player, maybe over reliant on his own play. Now he's able to give the ball off to players in better positions. He has absolutely everything from my point of view to make it at this level. He made a huge impact, in Ennis when he came on for William O'Donoghue.
I was just going to say, John, we've seen two sides to him now. We saw him playing deeper against Clare, winning a lot of ball, distributing it, running it, picking holes. And we saw him the other day now as a kind of a loose forward, getting on ball, popping it over the bar. So that kind of feeds into your point that he has a lot of strings to his bow. He's not a one. He's not just an inside forward, or he's not just a midfielder or whatever. He can do. He could play. You could play him from 7. You can play from number 5. We'll say wing back, probably all the way through the team, and you'd know confidently he'd give you a fairly good performance.
It would be no surprise to me, Tom. We were talking about Peter Casey, obviously, a couple of minutes ago. If Adam English is the man to fill Peter Casey's role, it would not surprise me in any which way. It just look, I'll say it again, he's everything. He has so much ability, and he's been hampered by injuries. As I said, he nearly missed a full year with I think it was a knee injury he had at the time. Maybe I'm open to correction on that, but we've certainly seen it as well in the Limerick senior, the club championship in the last year or two as well with Adam. Certainly in 2023, I think we saw him stand up even further for Doon senior team last year on their run to to
They were
the
missing so many, yeah.
And exactly, as they were missing so many players, he kind of took on a leadership role in the 21, 22 years of age. That's a huge, you say, and was well able for it, and proved to be throughout their campaign one of their top guns throughout. But yeah, he has. You've hit the nail on the head, Tom. He can. You need him to fulfill a role and just to come out for Will O'Donoghue in the white heat atmosphere in Ennis and to perform the way he did in a very, I'll call it simple role of just basically blocking his man. And when he got the ball in hand, he did so several times. He was laying off quick possession. He sped everything up in that Limerick attack, and it shows the trust in that management having him to take off a player like of Will O'Donoghue's stature and standard in the Limerick setup, to trust Adam English to fulfill that role in that intensity and to see it come off. He wasn't just being brought on for the sake of it, Tom. He was brought on to make an impact. He did exactly that. He was brought on, like all the other subs are brought on, to make an impact. And it's not a coincidence to see so many of these Limerick players make that impact so often when they come off the bench. And Adam, along with Cathal O'Neill and David Reedy, you mentioned this role maybe as the super sub that previous players had in the Kiley and Kinnerk regime. I don't know if Adam English is that guy. I think Adam English could be pushing further. We've seen David Reedy have to be very patient for his starting spot. We've seen Cathal O'Neill have to do something similar. Starting the first two championship games this year for Cathal has been a big fill up for him. David Reedy the same, but David Reedy kind of probably cemented his spot in this team last year more often than not. So will Adam English fulfill that role for next year? He might. He very well might. But I just think, he has something different to offer. He can offer so many different things as well. And, to have a player like that, and I said this maybe last week or the week before, the transformation of the Limerick panel in the last 6 to 8 months since that All-Ireland win against Kilkenny is stark. You're seeing maybe some more unfamiliar names on the Limerick subs bench now than you may have in the last 2 or 3 years. You're seeing Adam English come on. You're seeing Donegal O'Donnell. Adam, fair enough, was in the 26 more often than not last year. Donegal wasn't for the Munster Championship. Had a great league as we've spoken about. But now you're looking at that. They're two of the first ones brought on. You've Conor Boylan still around doing a job every time he comes on. So there's plenty more options. Colin Coughlin coming on for Kyle Hayes the last day as well. So you're seeing a younger, and Graham Mulcahy, of course, brings that age right up,
Yeah, I'll come to him in a second. But like if Fergal O'Connor is now there instead of, I think, maybe Aaron Costello, who's kind of, often on the bench for Limerick for 2 or 3 years, you also would have had Ronan Connolly, I think, who's now gone off the panel. So it's kind of evolved. Aidan O'Connor, first time on the bench was the All-Ireland final, came on against Clare. Bench wasn't used the other day, but it is there again. So that's the Gen Z guys I'm talking about. Guys that are just out of 20s a year or two. Very, very hungry guys, very, very skillful guys, have shown it at club level. For all of those guys really have shown it at club level. We've mentioned they've shown it at minor and 20s as well, of course, shown it in the league. So now they're being trusted, I suppose, they're coming up the pecking order. And yeah, the door has opened slightly sometimes and up for some more than others. But yeah, I think it's great to see that it has evolved. People maybe think that the starting 15 has become, too familiar maybe, but certainly what's off the bench has definitely evolved over the 5 or 6 years, but as you say, even over the 5 or 6 months, maybe it has evolved. Just to mention, I'm conscious we've a lot of the hurling chat. Just to mention, I would have said congratulations to Nicky Quaid, who got the Limerick Championship record appearance record on his own. He moved on to 64 appearances, but then of course Mr. Graham Mulcahy came off the bench and got back to 64. Got to 64 himself. So at the start of the year, it was Graham was ahead by 1, and obviously didn't play against Clare. So so both of them now in 64 championship appearances. I tell you, it's some innings from those two men, and when the books will be written, John, in whatever 5 or 10 years, hopefully by these guys and by many more, I tell you, some people won't even recognise their first championship year with Limerick, the year of the strike. Now, we're not going to go all the way down that path, but I tell you, these lads have put in some shift for Limerick, haven't they? That's what, 15, 16 seasons ago now, 2009, is it? Yeah. I tell you that they've put in some shift for Limerick. And obviously they've had the glory now of the last 6 seasons, but there was a decade there before where there was very little to be roaring and shouting about, and they've stuck with it. They played maybe when people didn't even want them to play for Limerick because of what was going on, and they've got their awards, and they're still very, very important to this Limerick team.
Oh, massively. Sure, Nicky is the premier goalkeeper in the country still, but I'm right in saying, I think, Tom, that didn't Nicky make his championship debut out the
Centre
field?
back, yeah, or
Yeah,
wing
at
back
centre
maybe
back
it
in
was.
that
Yeah,
year.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so, and it shows Nicky's versatility. We all know the centre back for his club Effin as well. And Graham Mull showed no signs of slowing down in last year's Limerick Senior Championship either. I like the legend word is used, and it's awful to use that word when players are still playing at times, and not a fan of it. But if you are to use it, two of those guys would be at the top of your Mount Rushmore of Limerick hurlers, I'm sure. Forget about the appearances, even that shows their
Mm.
longevity, which is one brilliant, strand of what they bring to the table. But it's their abilities. Graham Mulcahy, much maligned over the years. I remember it well, the amount of debate about Graham Mulcahy in 2017. Would he make it to 2018? What's he doing on the panel in
That's
2018?
been said. I've heard that said every single winter
Every
for the
single
last
year, yeah.
7 years.
That's the end of Mulcahy. He's another
Yeah,
All
he's
Ireland.
done now. He's 3 All Irelands.
Yeah.
He's finished. He's 4 All Ireland. It'll do him now. He's 5. Oh wait, he's still there, and he's still
And
on
you
the
see
panel.
him, and you see him coming off the bench against Tipperary and
Yeah,
making an impact, Tom. And that's, they don't suffer fools in that panel for very long. So Graham Mulcahy, the fact that he's making the bench, B, he's probably pushing close to start, and he may do so against Cork, in Limerick's next game. But to be on the panel number one, it shows the commitment. I think Graham, I'm right in saying as well that Graham works in Cork, so it's a fair old trek from Cork City to McNeville Park for training sessions. So you can only applaud Nicky, Graham, and everyone else that's been on the panel over such a long period of time. But those two in particular, to reach that kind of landmark game tally at intercounty level is huge, number one. But the longevity of their careers is absolutely credit to them as well. And especially, Tom, we talk about, there's been a lot written about that strike of Limerick, a strike for want of whatever else you want to call it. But there were green shoots that came out on the back of that year. Sadly, that year probably had to happen for this Limerick success for this Limerick success to happen, I should say. So to have two players that stood up for Limerick in those dark times, for them to be still involved, is a massive lift, and should be a massive lift, and should always be celebrated for what Nicky and Graham have done for Limerick.
yeah. Well, there we go. Yeah, 64 championship appearances not out. I'm sure they'll add to that now in the coming weeks, and we'll see how many they clock up by the end of this year. And I'm sure they'll be looking for a contract extension, as it were. Just behind them, of course, in 60 is Declan Hannon. So he'll keep chipping away at that as well. So that's it on the senior hurling front. We'll just look down through the other Limerick teams as well. There's the minors, who, of course, in the under-17s as it is. They are in action this evening, Thursday. A win against Waterford at the TUS Gaelic Grounds will guarantee fourth. And in this, again, the GA have moved the goalpost in these championships, but 4th out of 5 in Munster, which is what Limerick will guarantee with a win, will ensure their passage to the All-Ireland Series. I think it's more or less a preliminary quarter final if they can get over Waterford, who have yet to taste victory. So 2 winless sides coming into this one on the 2 Gaelic Grounds. I suppose by the time people have heard this, the game might be on or indeed over. So just to touch on it briefly, obviously Shane Dowling's side have already lost to Cork and Clare on away side, so they'll be hoping for a little bit better on home soil this evening against Waterford, and they'll finish their group against Tipperary on the 9th of May. Also, that's next Thursday, also at the TUS Gaelic Grounds. John, just to look at the 20s, their championship hopes, I suppose they were outsiders really when they went to Cork. They suffered a 3rd defeat, but I suppose I saw a lot of this game. Thankfully, it was streamed by TG Cahir. Saw a lot of this one. Limerick a little bit unlucky. They went ahead with a goal around the 3/4 mark, but just didn't find another gear. Cork certainly did. I think Cork maybe 1-6 to a point, or maybe 1-6 to no score of a run. And I suppose Cork are champions for the last few years. They've been turning out decent teams, as we've said, but disappointing for the youngsters of the 20s. They just couldn't get that result that maybe they craved.
Yeah, much better performance, Tom, than what we've seen in the games against Tipperary and Clare. I think it's safe to say from the off, the way they started the game was really, really positive for me, and I saw most of it. I'd say up to the 40-odd minute mark. I just thought, yeah, the fair play to Evan Loftus and
The intensity of the
management
team
team.
was
The
done way
intensity
up.
of the team, the speed of the way they were moving the ball, the way they were running through the tackles. Then you're always asked to break tackles, then move the ball on. Maybe they were just running right over Cork at times. It was really, really positive to see for large parts of the game. Again, didn't see the last 20 minutes of the game, but in the first half, certainly I saw Sean Casey at centre back. I thought made a very, very positive impact in that game. Obviously it was Shane O'Brien up front, but Limerick looked to be moving the ball so much better throughout. And of course, you move the ball that bit quicker, that bit better, into the service, and in the ability to get the ball in quick to likes of Shane O'Brien, Toshie O'Farrell, Hugh Flanagan and Robert, O'Farrell in the in the half forward line as well. It was just more fluid. Fintan Fitzgerald inside, just everything seemed that bit more fluid than what we'd seen in the first couple of games. But ultimately, Tom, it does come down to results at this stage. Again, we'll reiterate, it's all about creating players for senior, but you want to be winning these games as well. And it didn't happen. It's never easy win down in Páirc Uí Chaoimh. They'll just be looking now to finish out the campaign with a victory, in their final game against Waterford.
Home to Waterford,
at home to Waterford in the next week or so, and that will be a positive. And you have to look at these things, both the minors and 20s are without victories, and it is important, as I said, to bring players through, but they'll both be craving victories from, the minors under 17s point of view, obviously tonight against Waterford, and obviously moving on to the Tipperary game, and then hoping to go further from there. But it's a big 10 days for the academy, I think, as well. Just given that, players are coming through. You've the likes of Darragh Langan, who's playing under 20s and part of the senior setup as well. Shane O'Brien the same, and I think guys in that 20s team are looking at the likes of them saying as a direct pathway. They've seen it. Donegal O'Donnell in the last couple of years. The pathway is there for everyone to see, Tom. And I'm sure there's a good few of that minor team thinking the exact same thing, and that is ultimately it. But they'll be craving victories in the next couple of games for the minors and 20s, and hopefully they can get over the line in those, starting with the minors tonight.
Yeah, hopefully the Daisha will prove no obstacle, but we'll see. But neither county, I suppose, going extremely well at either grade. So hopefully they can turn it around and finish their respective Munster campaigns on a high. So let's just flip now to Gaelic football. The Tailteann Cup draw was made earlier this week, and it was on a Tuesday afternoon. It was a peculiar enough time, I think around 3 o'clock, but nevertheless it was done along with the Sam Maguire draw. But we're of course interested here in all things Limerick, and indeed the Tailteann Cup draw has spat up an interesting set of games for Limerick. So Limerick have been drawn in a group alongside Down and Offaly, who of course they met in the group stages of the National Football League, and they're also facing London. So John, just looking at that there on screen, anyone listening obviously won't be able to see that, but just on screen there, Limerick going away to Down. That's more than a tough game. I think it's probably one of the toughest ones they could have got really. Then they'll be at home to Offaly, who edged them out by a point in the league in one of the last rounds of the league, and then they'll play London at a neutral venue. So that's starting quite soon. Actually, it's Saturday week or Sunday week, the 11th to 12th of May. 2 quickfire games. Then there's a gap week, and then it finishes on the June bank holiday weekend, Saturday or Sunday, the 1st and 2nd of June. So, John, your read on it, I suppose, is probably going to be no easy group here in this, but maybe Limerick didn't get not the kindest group either, in terms of Down got much better of them in the league.
Yeah, both Down and Offaly beating them in the league, Tom. Down away, as we see it on screen, that's a very tough game. You mentioned the result in the league, and there was a stark difference. Of course, Down, I think I'm right in saying we're beating finalists against Meath in last year's competition. Limerick getting to the quarterfinals.
That's right,
yeah. Offaly at home, I think Limerick left O'Connor Park in the league this year very disappointed that they didn't come away with victory against Offaly in that game. It was probably one of their best performances of the league campaign. So I'm not sure if that'll hold a huge amount of fear, especially it being a home game, depending on where that one will be played. I think if you get a good crowd behind that Limerick team, hopefully they'll be going into it maybe with a positive performance against Down, maybe not the result, and maybe get a scalp there, and then going into the London game with it all to play for. The nature of the Tailteann Cup, of course, for Limerick this year, having been number 1 seeds last year, be number 3 seeds this year, and that's just the way things have happened for
it's
Limerick.
It's based off league position, and obviously
Based
Limerick
off league position, exactly.
from Division 2 to 3, and now they're going from 3 to 4, so they're just in the middle of the rankings, as it were. So
that's exactly it, and that's a product of, you said, of the league campaigns over last year and this year. London, then the final game at the neutral venue. In a way, that could have been a really big banana skin. London have been improving the last couple of years.
It's not going to be played in Manchester now or Birmingham, is it?
No, well, yeah, interesting if it is, Tom. I think we'll try and get the press pass for those ones.
I
If it was London, definitely. Like that. It's not an unfamiliar opponent. It has been the last 2 years, obviously 3 years with Limerick earning promotions. They had some titanic battles in Division 4, not so long ago between them. I think London are improving, and may fancy a crack off Limerick, may fancy a bigger crack off Limerick if that was, as we understand, if that was a home game for London. But no, I think it's the nature of the Tailteann Cup, Tom, is very much a case of teams at similar levels playing off against each other. Down, as I said, beaten finalists, and very unlucky in Ulster, of course, a couple of weeks ago. A couple of mistakes late on and cost them a place in advancing in Ulster in their I think it was a preliminary quarterfinal or quarterfinal game. I'm not sure which. Memories leave me down there. So down big time favourites to top that group, and it's a battle for second after that. For me, anyway.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with you. Just to, I suppose, reiterate the format, the group winners go to a quarterfinal. Second is a home quarterfinal. That is, second is guaranteed into a prelim quarterfinal. And I think you have what I would term a bit of a farcical situation where the best 3 of the 4 third place teams are through to the prelim quarterfinals, along with New York, who are at this point the furthest team advanced in the competition. But anyway, that's a logistics matter. But Limerick at a minimum need to finish third, and then basically your scoring difference needs to be favourable. So there'll be, if Limerick do finish third, for example, there'll be four teams in total in third, and their scoring difference needs to be better than at least one of those. So the down one from if you were to go on the form guide, Limerick maybe. If you were to go on the seeding, Limerick should be third. Now, it's not going to obviously work out that way in every group, but the down game could be important from terms of make sure they're competitive, make sure if they are beaten, it is very minor margin, unlike the league game, and then that'll have them in a good position. Then if they can pick up maybe a win, a draw, or even 2 wins in the other 2 games, that should be enough to get them through. You get into the prelim quarterfinals, you have a game there against whoever, and then who knows from there. Limerick lost out to Laois last year in a game they shouldn't have lost, having won the group, and maybe Laois just had that bit of a bounce because they had a prelim quarterfinal. So it depends what way you look at it. But look, I think getting out of the group is the main aim. Obviously, winning a game. Limerick haven't won a game now for it'll be 12 months by the time they played. They'll have won a game of in any competition. So that'll be the first thing. Get out of the group then, and hopefully, the squad is healing in terms of injuries. They're getting closer to the strongest 15 available, hitting a bit of form, a bit of confidence in the group, and who knows?
If Limerick play anywhere near like they did against Cork in the Munster Championship, I know the result and the scoreline told a different story at the end with the concession of 2 late enough goals. That game is in the melting pot, 3 or 4 points between them, heading into the last 10 minutes of that. So, there were so many positives to take from that. As you said, hopefully they've built on that and getting some of their injured players back, and you don't know what can come. I think a lot of positives. You have to take positives from that performance from Limerick's point of view. So going into this Tailteann Cup, I think they can only look at it one way and to give it a rattle. And I'm sure Jimmy Lee and his backroom team will be all about that heading into that first game against Down.
Yeah, and I suppose they did finish the league while the results weren't there. They were beaten by a point by Wicklow, a point by Offaly. They were the last 2 games, and then I think before that was Clare by 4 points at home. Clare in the Munster final. Clare are it seemed to be a fairly formidable outfit. So the results were not too poor relative to what they might have been, considering they were bottom of the division. It just found themselves on the wrong side of a couple of tight games as the campaign went on. So we'll see how that one develops. We'll be looking forward to the Down game next weekend. That's going going to be penciled in for the 11th and 12th of May. So that will be on next week's podcast. John, the earlier game at the TUS Gaelic Grounds last Sunday was the Camogie. 12 points to 6, I believe, the score. Waterford getting the better of Limerick. We mentioned last week, of course, Waterford were All-Ireland finalists last campaign. So we were probably maybe expecting Waterford to edge Limerick out. How did you see this game? Were Limerick, were they competitive? Was there green shoots? Was there plenty to be positive about ahead of the championship?
All positive, Tom. Yeah. From Limerick's point of view, talking to Joe Quaid, manager, after the game. Of course, he was on the podcast with us last week. And he was delighted with what he saw from his charges, and talking to a couple of other people involved during the week, that it was all positive after the game. So, yeah, 12-6 defeat. Not for 1 second did anyone expect Limerick to beat that Waterford team, a Waterford team that contained Beth Carton, Lorraine Bray, Niamh Rocket, amongst plenty of other top quality opposition. Beth Carton, of course, I think I'm right in saying as well, was Player of the Year in last year's All-Ireland Senior Championship as well. And I'd argue Beth Carton was the difference between the two teams. Outstanding performance from her. But Limerick, yeah, more than green shoots, Tom. They made a great start to the game. They could have been 3 or 4 points up if it wasn't for an outstanding save from the Waterford keeper on a Caoimhe Costello penalty. Great, just dived down to her left, brilliantly bouncing low shot, just a brilliant save from the keeper. But yeah, all you could take was positives from it. And they took on Waterford. Yeah, 6 points doesn't really tell the full story. Caoimhe Costello, I mentioned it when we were talking about the senior game earlier, the senior hurling game earlier, that it was fairly dry for most of that game. But the conditions for the Camogie were exactly that, anything but dry. It was a torrential rain coming down in the Ennis Road venue for large parts of that. It improved as the game went on, but it was a crapshoot early on in that game. And a couple of long range frees dropping short on a dry day would have went over the bar. Little things like that costed Limerick. Bouncing the ball around the edge of the square after them dropping short, didn't go their way. A couple of goal chances snuffed out outside of that penalty. But from a defensive point of view, keeping Waterford to 12 points, very impressive defensive display. Just all positives all over the park, Tom. And Joe Quaid rightfully, heading into the All-Ireland with a bit of confidence, and the girls definitely coming into that game with confidence, given the performance to put on. It was no weak Waterford side. You had their three main scorers. I'm pretty sure in saying the three only scorers in that 12 points were Beth Carton, Niamh Rocket, and Lorraine Bray. So that just tells you, they're three high level players. And outside, you take probably, as I said earlier, Beth Carton out of that team, and you had a very, very different game, because she had such an influence, in the water performance. But yeah, nothing but positivity coming from that game from Limerick's point of view. And you only have to look a couple of years ago when these two sides met in an All-Ireland quarter-final, and Waterford blew Limerick completely out of it. Just the positives taken from that victory over Wexford in their last league game certainly brought into the Munster Senior Camogie Championship, and I'm sure they'll be brought all the way to the All-Ireland Championship. Couldn't have went any better for Limerick outside of the result.
Yeah, the Glendimplex Camogie Senior Championship draw done a couple of months ago now. Just to remind people, if they hadn't heard it, Limerick will be playing Waterford again in that. They'll be playing Tipperary, Derry, Antrim, and Kilkenny. So they're actually starting that with Kilkenny on I think it's the last Saturday of May 25th, I believe it is. So I suppose it is a very challenging group. There's no getting away from that. But winnable games in there too. I think they'll fancy beating Derry and Antrim, and also they'll fancy a crack off Tipperary, and maybe even Waterford. They might have learned a lot from the game the other day. So look, it'll be. I don't think we're expecting anyone from Limerick to be collecting the O'Duffy Cup come late August or whenever it is the final is penciled in for. But certainly, I think we'll see a lot more from Limerick in the championship than we have for maybe the last couple of seasons. So look, we'll follow Joe Quaid and the girls for the season ahead. We'll see how it plays out. Just to mention as well, the Limerick junior side, Dave Deedy, of course, the Bannister there, they are back in their Munster action of their own. I think I have the fixture here to hand. I will get it up on screen now. Yes, indeed, they're in the Munster Junior Camogie Championship final. It is themselves against Cork. two second teams battling it out. And as you can see there on screen, Sean Tracy Park in Kilcommon in County Tipperary. That's on Bank Holiday Monday at 3 p.m. So a chance for some, I suppose, mid-season silverware following the disappointment of narrowly being beaten in the league final by Dublin. So, John, I think that's us on the Camogie front. Obviously, we're wishing Dave, Dee and the ladies the best of luck in that Munster final. They'll have their own championship coming up near the end of the month and in across June. Just to look at the ladies' football, the Limerick ladies' football, John, they put out an experimental side against what was experimental Kerry side, but a good win in what is the Munster Ladies Football B Championship. So, competitive game, a chance for the management to look at a few new players. So, positivity after the league final defeat, that they're back up, they're back winning, and they're back out on the field again.
Yeah, very important to get that game under their belts, Tom, just to maybe wipe away the cobwebs from and whatever lingering things that came from that defeat in the league final to Carlow. Against the Kerry developmental side, as you mentioned, Sean Kiley and Mike Willigan giving certain players their opportunities that may not have got them in the league. I know there was a couple of players brought in since then as well that may have played that game too. So it's all building towards the All-Ireland Junior Championship for that team, as we know. And the ability to have a final to play in again that quickly, I think is it at semi-final stage, Tom? I'm not quite sure, but the more games that team plays, the better for them in preparation for what will be a very hotly contested All-Ireland Junior Championship this year. So, it's a big win over, as I said, a Kerry developmental side, and should breed a bit of confidence. As I said, if there was any lingering doubts from that league final, which I don't think there were, talking to players and management after that game. So, yeah, any day you beat Kerry in a game of football, if you're from Limerick, no matter what the level, no matter what the occurrence, it's always a positive. But, hopefully the management duo got to see some players they may not have used or may not have seen so far this year in that game. And, maybe they can add something come All-Ireland Junior Championship time.
Yeah, Sophie Hennessy actually lined out in goals, and obviously I think she'd maybe been more often than not the second choice in the league. So there was little switches like that, and interesting to see Mairead Kavanagh listed at 14. Now, I didn't actually catch if she'd played. I presume she did. She was wearing number 14 on the official matchday program, and she was obviously key in that win in 2018. So the St. Ailbe's club lady is back. So not sure had she featured earlier in the year now, but
she'd been on the panel, Tom, and a couple of panels, but I can't say offhand now if she'd played any game, but she'd certainly had returned to the panel from the start of the year. But
right, okay,
would be a huge benefit to the team if Mairead was fit, and hopefully she did line out on Sunday. I haven't seen the official team that did start the game, but Mairead would bring a huge amount to that forward line, and maybe exactly what Limerick need, if they are to get back up to intermediate grade with a victory in the All-Ireland this year.
Yeah, so it was a 5-21 to 10 points win over what was a developmental Kerry side. So good start to that campaign. To face Cork now, I think maybe a bit of a stiffer challenge awaits in that one, but we shall see how that one plays out. John, I think we've come to the end of it. Hopefully now the weather will be a little bit better around us this week. The sun might shine on us, but it's certainly, I suppose, shining on the Limerick hurlers, as it were. We'll preview the game against Cork, which isn't a million miles away. That's coming up, the senior hurling clash, of course, against Cork. That's coming up on, isn't it, Saturday the 11th, if my calendar is correct? Yeah. So we'll be previewing that next week. We'll might get an old Cork man in or two in alongside and see what they think of their own woes at the moment. But we won't be knocking them down too much. They've won plenty down the years. So, John, thanks very much for your company this week again, and I'm sure we'll be back next week to chat all things